Very much, and good morning to everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Inuit Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. I'd like to introduce the panel members this morning via Zoom. We have Michelle Duncan and Linda Schultz. Myself, my name is Mike Coltrugla, and I'll be chairing this morning's hearing. From the assessment department, we have Roddy Pontanilla, and the administrative personnel this morning is Twinkle Sharma. To the Zoom participants of the hearing, please note you are placed in the waiting room until your property is called upon. When it is your turn, you will be admitted into the meeting. Kindly follow along on the City of Winnipeg's Border Revision YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close or mute your YouTube player. You will then be permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once your hearing is concluded, you can leave the meeting. We'll be hearing application for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by council and is independent of it and city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all evidence about the application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You'll receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We'll be hearing items 2, 3, 5, and 7 on our docket today. Ms. Sharma, please affirm the assessor and the applicant's testimony.
For sure. Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Rodrigo Pontanilla.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to provide at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Marcelo Navarro.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to provide at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good morning, gentlemen, and happy to see that you've come to terms on some of the properties that you've been dealing with for this particular hearing. So leaving us with fewer numbers than we had originally thought. So thank you very much, both of you. Mr. Pontanilla, could you go to 701 Regent Avenue West and give us your presentation on that, please?
I can, Mr. Chair. Just give you guys a second to open up your briefs. And I will begin. So first up, we have file 24-2235. The roll number is 0900-543-5000. The address is 701 Regent Avenue West. The 2025 assessment has gone out at $11,157,000. So we are speaking about a parcel use CMRNS, which is a neighborhood shopping center. We have 3 buildings associated, 16 premises associated with the subject property. And a 1 to 2 story we have for a number of stories. We have the actual year built of 1960 and 1983 with an effective year of 1965 to 1983. The land area is 146,768 square feet. And the total leasable area is 71,644 square feet. On page 2, I have included a pad eye view image of the subject property so we can see its orientation in the neighborhood. On page 3, I have included an overhead view of the subject property using pictometry. Following that, we have a south-facing view and an east-facing view of the subject property. And then following that, I have included some Google Street View images from the 2022 map overlay. We have received requests for income and expense information, so we're okay there. We do have some sales history for the subject property, including a sale that actually I would ask the panel to not put any weight on, as it does appear to be after the reference period. I should have caught that actually. So the only sale I'll point to would be June 2nd, 2005 for 5.3 million. We also have some subject property leases that we have in our system. So we do have a unit 110 at $16 per square foot for 9,980 square feet. Unit 118 at $17 a square foot. Unit 120 at $14 a square foot. 122 at 15, etc. I'll let the panel look at them individually there. But we do have some lease information there for the subject property. Following that, I have included some rent comparables for the subject property. So these rent comparables are all labeled neighborhood shopping center property types. They are all from within the same market region, and they have the same labeling of CMRNS. And then we do have the areas that range from 900 square feet at the lower end up to 14,000 square feet, it looks like, at the higher end. As well, we have rents ranging from, looks to be $13 at the lower end up to low 40s at the much higher end. Following that, I do have the income stream for the subject property. So I do want to let the panel know that I would like to make a recommendation, but I wanted to give you guys the background on the subject property first before I gave the recommendation. So I'll just quickly run through the stream now, and then I'll let you guys know what I did for my adjustments for the recommendation for this file.
Okay, go ahead.
So we have looks like we have 16, if I'm not incorrect there, just quickly counting premises on the income stream. We have areas that range on the premises from 1,385 square feet at the lower end up to 18,170 square feet at the higher end. I believe that would be for the Dollarama area there. And then we do have rents that range from $5.01 at the lower end. That would be for the banquet hall that's there, all the way up to $38 would be the highest rent we have modeled, and that would be for the bank that's operating there. The total potential rent is $932,959. That's model driven on 71,644 square feet. As well, a vacancy of 8% was applied to capture some of the vacancy challenges that the subject property was having. A 3% expense, $9 shortfall, and then the net operating income of $789.88 was capitalized by a 7% cap, which gave us our original value of $11,157,000. So for my recommendation, I have gone and made some adjustments to some of the rental premises. So if you will look at premise 8743, 2,816 square feet. The model originally had it at $18.12, and I adjusted that to $14.50 per square foot. For premise 8748, 3,460 square feet. The model had it at $16.43. I adjusted that to $14 per square foot.
Mr. Pompeo, sorry, I'm just catching up with you here.
Yeah, no problem, no problem.
The first one is
So that would be premise. It's the second
743, you
C2.
said,
8743, the second premise. Yep.
right? And that went from 1812 down to,
$14.50.
okay? And then the next premise,
The next premise would be premise 8748,
okay?
and that should be 3,460 square feet for size. $16.43 was model, and I reduced that to $14 per square foot. Below that, for premise 8749, we have 1,500 square feet. The modeled rate was $17.80, and I adjusted that to $15 per square foot. For premise 8754, the modeled rate was $17.90 per square foot, and I had adjusted that to $15 per square foot. Below that, premise 8755, we have that at 1,110 square feet at a modeled rate of $18.33 per square foot. And I had made an adjustment to that premise to $14 per square foot. And then the final adjustment that I made to the income stream, it would be to premise 26127 near the bottom. 1,875 square feet. We had a modeled rate of $17.43 per square foot. And I'm offering a recommendation of $16 per square foot to that premise.
okay?
So when you take all the adjustments that I made, the total potential rent went from $932,960 down to, it should be $890,925. And that's much more reflective of the subject property's performance, in my opinion.
Okay.
As well, I did do a look at the information that had been presented to me in the 2022 mailer, and I did some work and deemed that a slightly higher vacancy would be deemed appropriate for the subject property.
Okay.
So the vacancy that I'm using is 9.5% from 8%. So an extra 1.5% of vacancy.
Okay, expenses the same, sir?
Expenses stay the same, the shortfall stays the same, and I'm proposing the same cap rate of 7%. So the revised assessment that I'm putting forward is $10,298,000. $10,298,000.
And what was the NOI that you achieved?
The NOI that I achieved was 720,843.
720,
843.
thank you. And you still use the 7% cap rate, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you very much. Can I ask, I know it's a bit out of turn, but you changed the rents on these premise IDs that you've given a list of, 6 of them. What was the change for, other than a change of heart, or is this what the actuals are?
No, those are the actuals. They went to actuals for some of them, and then what I did is I just tried to get the total potential to line up more so with the potential that was being declared by the subject property for 2022.
Okay. Thank you very much. And Mr. Navarro, are you aware of this valuation reduction?
I wasn't aware of this one. We had tried to work out something else, but we didn't get permission to actually accept any type of offer. So unfortunately, with this client, we're not able to accommodate this adjustment. But we do thank the assessor for making that offer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Navarro. Mr. Pontiel, would you like to continue with your presentation if you care? If there's something else we need to be our attention is drawn to?
I don't think so, Mr. Chair. I think the following income value summary would have just been from the original modeled valuation. And then we have our cap rate information that we provide, Municipal Assessment Act excerpts, and then the subject's income and expense mailer that takes us to the end of the presentation. So I should be okay on that.
Okay, I'm guessing you are looking at this as a neighborhood strip, or are you considering this?
This is a neighborhood shopping center.
Okay. Fair enough. Questions, Mr. Navarro?
I have done, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Schultz, do you have questions at this point of the assessor?
Just one question. So you adjusted some of the rents, as per what you just went over with us. You
Yep.
went from a model rent of 932, 959, but if I look at page 16 on the client's property income and expense questionnaire, they're reporting rental income of 729, 469, which is still quite a bit difference than what you're proposing now at 890, 925. So why did you select those properties opposed to going to rent actually earned?
I just did that based on trying to tamper down what the model had provided. I felt, in my opinion, just from having looked at that and the other information in front of me, that it seemed a little low for the subject property. So I left a little room there in case maybe you guys might have had different opinions on whether it should be. I mean, I took a look at the total potential that was being put forward was very reasonable for the subject property. The cap rate was reasonable. I made an adjustment to the vacancy as well. So the vacancy also captures a little more, right? So if you look at the total potential, but then I also increased the vacancy. So that actually brings the total potential down a little more. So I did what I could to sort of bring the subject property with what I thought was more in line with the valuation for it, just based on all the information I looked at.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you very much. Ms. Duncan, questions?
Yeah, just what was your average rent per square foot then on the 930 or on the
My
actual
my
provide?
average rent per square foot. So the model had applied $13.02. That was the modeled average per square foot. And after my adjustments, the blended rate was $12.44 per square foot.
Thank you. And then just a sec here, one sec. Just the rent comparables, they were all significantly smaller than the subject property as far as square footage. How do you think that impacts those comparable values?
Can I ask in what way was it smaller? Because if you look at each individual subject property, we have a range from 385 square feet up to 9,980 square feet. The other ones, we do have a couple that were bigger, but I believe I did include a few that had higher square footages as well. So if you look, I did include at 1615 Regent Avenue, we have 14,187 square feet. 1530 Regent Avenue West, we have 11,063 square feet. So I think I did capture all the square footages I needed to.
Yeah, I was looking at the overall. My apologies. Thank you very much for your answer. No other questions.
Thank you very much. And I believe I've asked my questions and I've heard answers to some of the other ones that I had. So thank you all for your input. Mr. Navarro, I believe we could hear your presentation at this point. It'd be greatly appreciated.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So we're looking at 701 Regent Avenue West. I don't think we need to get into the property that much, as the assessor has given a good description of the property already. So for the sake of time, I'll ask you to go to page 14 of the brief, and that is the income approach summary. So at the income approach summary, you can see that we've gone with essentially the actual rents, and we've adjusted any vacant spaces with rents that we reviewed in the marketplace. So we have a rental rate of $12.29. That's not far off of the revision that Mr. Pontonia made. We have a vacancy allowance of 15%. We feel that that is actually more reflective of what's actually happening in this location. And it has had a few years of vacancy up to this point. And just going back on the issue of the rent, I believe one of the panel members had asked that the rent in the actuals was slightly lower, around $700 and some thousand. The reason specifically would be is because they're likely not counting any rent for those vacant spaces. So we are actually putting a rent for those vacant spaces into our potential income summary. And then adjusting for the vacancy that we feel is appropriate. So we've adjusted for 15% vacancy. The rest of the valuation is pretty much the same in terms of the assessor. We have a shortfall of $9 per square foot, non-recoverable expenses of 1%, and other and structural allowance of 2%. So we have an allowance total of $119,180 and a net operating income of $629,500. Now we had a capitalization rate of 7.50, but like Mr. Pontanilla, I've had a time to reflect on that cap rate. And I would suggest that it probably is high. So we've adjusted that downward to 7% from the 7.50. So that creates a different income valuation. So with the 7.50, the income valuation was $8,393,333. At 7%, it goes up to $8,992,857 or $8,993,000 rounded. And that's simply just the adjustment on the capitalization rate from 7.5 to 7.0. Otherwise, in the appendix, I believe we've included some of the same information that the assessor has included. They are compliant, so there are no issues with compliance. And I'm open for questions.
Thank you very much. Questions, Mr. Pontanilla?
I'm okay on questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Duncan, questions?
Just the actual center stabilized for 3 or 2 years?
It is stabilized for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
5-year stabilization. Thank you. No other questions.
Thank you very much. And sorry, Ms. Schultz, questions?
No questions at this time, thank you.
Okay. And just because I'm a little bit curious, you say that there's been some significant vacancy here, correct?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the fluctuations on page 12, you can see that it's gone all the way from 32% down to 8%. So we've given an average of 15%, but yes, there has been a lot of vacancy in this location for some time.
And you're pointing to page 12.
12,
said, correct?
yeah.
Thank you. Just I note that the basement space, the banquet room there is vacant. Is that the case?
That's what we had, yes.
All right. I believe those are my questions. Thank you very much. Is there any summation on either part, gentlemen?
No summation required on my part. Thanks.
None for me, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right. I thank you both for your submissions and for your verbal recommendations on both. So thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to the next item on the docket. Moment. That being 801 Region Avenue. Mr. Pumpnia, could you walk us through your presentation, please?
All right, Mr. Chair, I'm ready. So up next, we have file 24-1776. We have the roll number of 0900-750-6100. The address is 801 Regent Avenue West. The 2025 assessment has gone out at $9,152,000. Once again, we are speaking about a neighborhood shopping center. We have 2 buildings associated, 15 premises associated with the subject, and it's a 1-story building. We have an actual year built of 1986 with an effective year built of 1995. We have a land area of 113,814 square feet and a total leasable area of 28,088 square feet. On page 2, I have included a pad eye view image of the subject property. On page 3, I have included an overhead view of the subject property. On page 4, I have a south-facing view and an east-facing view of the subject property. And following that, I have included some Google Street View images that use the 2021 and 22 map overlays. We have received requests for income and expense information, so we're okay there. We have no sales history for the subject property. And we do have some lease information on there for the subject property. For rent comparables, I have included rent comparables once again that are all neighborhood shopping center in type. These are all from the same market region as the subject property. And we do have areas that range from, looks to be 996 square feet at the lower end, up to 11,063 square feet at the higher end. And rents that range from, it looks to be $15 at the lower end, up to around $30 at the higher end. So we have a range there. I also included some rent comparables of some gas station kiosks, as we do have a gas station income stream on the subject property. And so we do see that we have some areas that range from 123 square feet up to 3,100 square feet. And then we do have some rents being achieved of $146, of course, for the much smaller ones. So there's an economy of scale at work there. And up to $26, it looks to be at the lower end, $27 around there. So as I mentioned, we do have 2 income streams on the subject property. So the first income stream we have is the SKP, the kiosk with pumps attached. So we do have 1 premise associated. It's a C5 kiosk, 2,682 square feet, and we have that at $28.20 per square foot. That gives us a total potential rent of $75,632. Which we then put through the subject property's income stream of a 2% vacancy loss, 3% expense, and a $6 shortfall per square foot. That brings us to a net operating income of $71,573, which then has a modeled cap rate of 5.9% applied. That gives us a capitalized value of $1,213,000 rounded. But then we do have some additional building value of $347,000, which would give us the total value for the SKP, the gas station kiosk, of $1,560,000. For the neighborhood shopping center stream, which would be income stream number 2, it does look like we have 14, I counted, 14 premises on the income stream. We have areas that range from 530 square feet at the lower end up to what it looks to be 3,000 square feet at the higher end. And then we do have rents that range. These are all modeled rents, and they range from $15.25 at the lower end up to looks to be $23 at the higher end, or $24 at the higher end. That gives us a total potential rent of $507,176. The total leasable area of $25,406. And if we run that through to get a blended rate, it gives us a blended rate of $19.96 per square foot. That value then goes through our income stream. Once again, this is all modeled. So we have a 4% vacancy, a 3% expense, and a $9 shortfall per square foot, which brings us to a net operating income of $463,136. We then apply a modeled cap rate of 6.1%, which gives us our capped value of $7,592,000. Following that is an income value summary of the subject property that we just spoke of. So we can see the blended rates that are on the far left, the blended vacancy applied, the blended, the total potential rate applied, the shortfall, net operating income, and then the blended cap rate of 6.07. We see our capped value there of $8,805,000 with the adjustment of $347,000 for the additional building value for the gas station. And that brings us our estimated value of our assessed value of $9,152,000. Following that, we have included some information for the cap rates for the city of Winnipeg on how we apply them. And then following that, we have our Municipal Assessment Act excerpts. And then following that, on my page 17, it might vary by yours by one page or so, but from there, taking us to the end of the brief is the subject property's income and expense information. And that's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions, Mr. Navarro?
Mr. Chair, I don't have any questions.
Thank you very much. Ms. Duncan, questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Schultz, questions?
No, thanks. No questions. Thank you.
Thank you, and I think I'm also good. So, Mr. Navarro, you're up.
Okay. So we are looking at 801 Regent Avenue West. And on pages 6 and 7, you can see pictures of the general location. So from my count, there are 15 units here, including the gas station. 16 with the gas station, I believe. On page 12, you can see our income summary, just the rental part. And obviously we've gone with the actuals. They produce a slightly higher potential than what the assessor has noted. But we are including this all in one income stream. It is one property, so we feel that one income stream is actually just as appropriate. So we have a total income of $583,351. That is basically a net rent of $20.36 per square foot. To that, on page 13, some of the comparables that we looked at, and also vacancy. There is no significant vacancy as there was with the other properties, so we've defaulted to a market vacancy of 4%, $9 per square foot for shortfall, and non-recoverable expenses of 1% and 2% for other. So on page 15, you get the entire summary. You can see there. Again, $20.36 is the rate. $583,351 is the potential. 4% vacancy creates an effective market of $560.17. An expense allowance of $27,115 and a net operating income of $532,902 with a capitalization rate of 7%. The income value for this property is $7,612,892. And to that, we've also added a $347,000 adjustment. So this adjustment is for those cost items that can't be valued on the income approach. This is for the gas station, and that would include the canopies, pumps, and tanks. Those items are valued using Marshall Swift. I've reviewed those tables, and for the most part, the assessor and I are generally not very far apart on these based on the tables that we review. So in this case, we accept the adjustment of $347,000. The total income or the total market value, therefore, is $7,959,892 or $7,960,000 rounded. In the appendix, we've also included the income and expenses. And I believe I'm open for questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Potnia, do you have questions at this time?
I have no questions for the agent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Schultz, questions?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you very much. And you have a cap rate of 7% on this particular property, sir?
Correct. That's taken from the income and the cap rate report that we submitted along with this. And that would actually be on page, I can just lead you to that, page 33 of the cap rate report.
33?
33 of the capitalization rate report.
Oh, sorry. Okay. You're thinking of your report and it only goes
No.
to one.
Yeah. So if you'll allow me to, so we have 3 asset classes for retail properties. This one, in our opinion, falls into the standard quality at 7% on the low end. Or you could view it as the high end of the retail top quality. However, from my perspective, I'm gauging this to be in that retail standard quality. So I've given the property a 7% cap rate. That is somewhat consistent with the previous property as well. So in the same area. So that's where we got it from.
Fair enough. Thank you very much. Those are my questions. Any summation, gentlemen?
No summation on my part, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
None for me, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, I believe we can close item number 3 off. Move on to item number 5. That being 2140 McPhillips.
Just opening my files, Mr. Chair. I'll just be 1 second.
In the same boat, so.
Okay.
I will get there in a moment or so.
Yep. And you guys let me know I'm ready now. So whenever you guys are ready, I can start.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the third file we have on the docket, it's file 24-2232. The roll number is 0500-526-2000. The address is 2140 McPhillips Street. The 2025 assessment has gone out at $6,895,000. Once again, we are speaking of a neighborhood shopping center for the parcel use. We have 6 buildings associated with the record, 11 premises associated, and it's a 1-story building. We have an actual year built of 1983, 1986, and an effective year built of 1983 to 1986. Wall heights range from 11 to 18 feet. We have a land area of 177,079 square feet and a total leasable area of 32,996 square feet. On page 2, I have included a pad eye view image of the subject property. On page 3, I have included an overhead view using pictometry of the subject property. On page 5, I have a north-facing view, or page 4, sorry, I have a north-facing view and an east-facing view of the subject property. And then following that, I have included the Google Street View images of the subject property using the 2017 and 24 map overlays. So you can see in the pictures that the ones from McPhillip Street, that would be the latest pictures. And then the ones that you see where it's in the subject property, that was using an older map overlay. We have received requests for income and expense information, so we're okay there. We do have 2 sales for the subject property. We do have one sale from April 4th, 2018. This sale did have a consideration sworn value and sale price of $7,605,000. So 7.6. And then we also have another sale from 2007 for $4,130,000. We do have some lease information for these subject properties, so we can take a look there at the rates that are being achieved, as well as the areas that range there. And then following that, I have included some rent comparables. So these rent comparables are from the same market region as the subject property. As well, they are all labeled neighborhood shopping centers. And we can see that the areas range from 1,239 square feet at the lower end up to 3,526 square feet at the higher end. And then we have rents that range from $21 at the lower end up to $30 at the higher end. Oh, and I did have another page of some neighborhood shopping center comparables that I included. And on that page, the areas range from sort of what I spoke already, from the 1 to 3,000-ish range for square feet. And then on this page, we have some higher rents. So these rents are a little higher from what they're receiving. Following that, I did include some information on some fast food leases that are being achieved. And we can see that the area ranges there from 840 square feet up to 3,782 square, or 4,170 square feet at the higher end. And that one's on McPhillips as well. And then we have rents that range. They're all fairly high rents, $30 and above. Following that, I have included some rent comparable information for some vehicle service garages. So the vehicle service garage is an income stream that we have where we value the garages, I guess, service garages. And as the subject property does have quite a few premises that are used in this manner, I thought it would be relevant to put some information on the rents that are being achieved for some of these service garages. So we can see that the areas range there from 1,633 square feet at the lower end up to 7,605 square feet at the higher end. And then we have rents that range from $12.63 at the lower end up to into the high 20s at the higher end. Following that, we do have our first income stream. So the first income stream we have is the vehicle service garage income stream. As I was mentioning, the majority of the premises are used as vehicle service garages. And so we do have 8 premises that are on the income stream. And then we have areas that range from 842 square feet at the lower end up to 6,238 square feet at the higher end. And then we have rents that range from $12 at the lower end up to $17.81 at the higher end. The total potential that's being achieved for the vehicle service garage is $338,045, which when you divide it by the total area, gives us a blended rate on the vehicle service garage stream of $13.63 per square foot. From there, we do have the model parameters applied of 2% vacancy, a 3% expense, and a $6 shortfall per square foot. which gives us a net operating income of $318,368. And then from there, we have a modeled cap rate applied of 7.05%, which gives us our modeled assessment for this income stream of $4,516,000. Following that, we have the second income stream on the subject property. So on the second income stream, we have 3 premises associated, an A2, what we designate as a higher quality restaurant, a C0 fast food restaurant, and a C4 typical or standard restaurant premise. The areas range from 951 square feet at the lower end up to 6,137 square feet at the higher end. And we have modeled rents applied that range from $21.66 at the lower end up to $26.34 at the higher end. The total potential achieved on the restaurant stream is $183,289. And if we put that through the calculator, we get an applied blended rate of $22.39 per square foot. From there, we have model parameters applied of a 4% vacancy, a 3% expense, and a $9 shortfall per square foot, which brings us to a net operating income of $167,730. And then from there, we have a modeled cap rate applied of 7.05% as well, so the same as the vehicle service garage stream. And that gives us a total capped rate, capped value of $2,379,000. Following that, we do have the income value summary for the subject property, so we can see high level of the valuation for the subject property. So we can see on the far left, the potential rent being applied for both is $521,334. The blended vacancy loss of 2.7 for both streams. That gives us the effective gross income of $507,241. And then we have a 3% expense rate applied, a $6.64 shortfall rate applied. That gives us the blended rate of blended net operating income of $486,098. And then from there, we have the cap rate of 7.05% applied, which gives us the total assessed value of $6,895,000. Following that is the cap rate information table that we provide in our briefs. From there, we have the Municipal Assessment Act excerpts. And following that, we have the 2022 income and expense mailer. And I believe that takes me to the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions, Mr. Navarro?
Mr. Chair, I have none.
Thank you. And Ms. Duncan, questions?
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Schultz, questions?
No questions, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I guess it's safe to call this an auto mall, is it not?
Colloquially, it could be called that. We have it listed as a neighborhood shopping center, I guess, due to the parking and the service that the parcel has provided in its layout. But I mean, one couldn't be wrong. The majority of the buildings of the businesses that are operating here, from my understanding, are vehicle service garages, with the other restaurants kind of taking up sort of the frontage of the subject property there, facing McPhillips.
Thank you very much. Those are my questions. Mr. Navarro, could we have your presentation at this point, please?
Absolutely. So we're looking at 2140 McPhillips Street on pages 6 and 7. You can see the overhead pictures. As you can see on page 6, this used to be so the restaurant, the former restaurant, I believe it's still a restaurant facing McPhillips Street. As you can see on page 6, it used to be a Perkins. It's no longer what you would call a name brand location. So the rent would reflect that. So on page 12, you can see our workup for the restaurant portion. And as you can see, we have a rent of $23.75 applied to this, based mainly on the actuals. That is slightly higher than the assessor's potential. And next on page 13, we'll look at the rent for the auto use areas. So a strange mall where you see a combination of restaurants and auto use locations, but it's always worked here. I grew up in this area, so I've been in this location many times. So on page 13, you can see that we've applied a overall rent of $12.46, 308,248 as a potential. And we looked at the rents that we have in the chart below. Moving on page 14, we haven't really deviated from any of the parameters that the assessor has also used. So we've gone specifically with the same parameters. So on page 15, we can see the income summary for the restaurant portion again. Oh, what am I looking at here? Oh, okay. So 2375, potential 194,436, 5% or 4% vacancy gives us an effective market of 186,659. Expense allowances of 8,547, net operating income of 178,111, and a capitalization rate of 7.25. Income valuation is 2,456,705 or 2,457 rounded. Next to that, on page 16, you can see the income valuation for the vehicle-related uses. And here we have an overall rental rate of $12.46 per square foot, 308,248 is the potential, 2% vacancy, effective market income of 302,083, expense allowance of $12,031, and a net operating income of $290,052. Same cap rate, 7.25. That gives us an income value of $4,717 or $4,001,000. On page 17, you can see the combined summary. So I'll take you through the total section, not the two that I just spoke about. So the total potential is 502,684, combining the vacancy at 2.77%. We get an effective of 488,742, expense allowance total of 14,662, shortfall of 5916, a net operating income 468,163. Capitalized at 7.25%. That gives us an income value of 6,457,422 or 6,457 rounded. Beyond that, we just have the income and expenses that were supplied to us, and we're open for questions.
Thank you very much. Questions, Mr. Potnia?
I'm okay on questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Ms. Schultz, questions?
No questions at this time, thank you.
Thank you very much. And questions, Ms. Duncan?
Just the one I&E for this one then, for 2022, there isn't a stabilized grouping.
Well, we always look at previous ones, but the reason that I had, for example, in some of the previous ones is anytime that there's a vacancy issue over several years, we want to include more than 1 year. So that would have been the reason for the amount of I&Es that we included for that particular property. For this one, I didn't see too many vacancy issues, hence we didn't really adjust it beyond the market. So 2022 is what we provided here.
Thank you. No other questions.
Thank you very much. So at the end of the day, you are not miles apart in your NOIs. Well, actually, no, not that far apart. So basically, it's a question of a 0.2% cap rate difference at the end of the day. Is that correct, Mr. Navarro?
Yeah. Some of the other ones that we looked at on Regent Avenue, I wouldn't have adjusted anything beyond what was there. This one I know a little bit more intimately. So I know it's had some issues in the past, and it's certainly had its ups and downs. So that would have been the reason for adjusting the cap rate slightly higher than the assessors, but we wouldn't have viewed this at the very top of the standard quality.
But ultimately, your NOIs, when you total them together, you guys are really not that far apart when
No.
you're looking at both streams, correct?
No, yeah, that's correct.
Thank you very much. Those are my questions. Any summation, gentlemen?
No summation on my part. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'm good as well. Thank you.
Thank you both. That concludes item number 5. And we can move on to item number 7. This being 83 Sherbrooke.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Pontia.
All right, just give me 1 second to finish opening up my plethora of documents I need here. All right. So I believe if the panel is ready, Mr. Chair, then I'll start my presentation here.
Go ahead. I also note that there is a non-cooperation issue on this one, sir.
Yes, there is. Yep. So I was going to get to that. Maybe we'll just go through the pictures and then I'll just jump to the non-cooperation issue and we can just deal with that so I can get the pictures out of the way as well for my presentation. If that's okay with you
Yeah.
guys.
Go ahead.
Okay. So up next we have our last file on the docket. It's file 24-1920. The address, or sorry, the roll number is 1209-052-1300. The address is 83 Sherbrooke Street. The 2025 assessment has gone out at $2,969,000. We do have this one labeled as well as a neighborhood shopping center. We have 1 building associated and 11 premises associated with the subject property, as well as it being a 2-story building. We have an actual year built and effective year built of 1980, a land area of 22,430 square feet, and a total leasable area of 18,525 square feet. And as you mentioned, Mr. Chair, we do have a non-cooperation issue that we're going to have to deal with, but I'll just go through the pictures first here so we can get that out of the way. So on page 2, I do have the pad eye view image of the subject property. On page 3, I have included an overhead view of the subject property using pictometry. Following that, I have a north-facing view and a west-facing view of the subject property. And then following that, I do have some Google Street View images, and these were uploaded using the 2019 map overlay. So we can see the subject property there. Okay, and so this is where we have our issues with the request for income and expense information. So we can see there that there were some previous requests that were granted extensions, as we can see there, 2021, and then as well as the 2022. So that's the important one there. The 2022, a request was granted or an extension was given. And if I can ask you to go to page, I believe it's page 14 of my brief. I'll give you guys a second to get there. The heading should say 2022 income and expense non-compliance documents. So you'll know you're there if you see that heading at the top.
Go ahead.
Okay, so what we have there, we have included this would have been the extension that was granted for the subject property, so we can see that the request was given approval. And that they did have an extension time given until June 30th, 2023. And you can see the roll numbers there, so we can see the roll number there for the reply for the roll number that was being inquired upon. And then following that, we do have the request for the extension for the subject property there. And then following that, we have included some information that we had on file. This information was given as part of a submission, I believe, for the subject property. And this is all we had that was provided. So we're gonna have to leave it up to the panel to decide whether or not there should be a compliance issue. So this is just all the information we had on file for the 2022 roll year.
Okay. Is there any customary letters that were sent out and signatory pages returned back from the
There was
owners?
There wasn't,
on
there
this?
wasn't, Mr. Chair, and no, there wasn't any signed documents received, and the reason for that is that when we receive a request for an income and expense information and the request is granted, they're not included in the second mailing of the official mailing that goes out, because the idea is that we've given them the extension and provided them more time to submit the mailer, so they actually aren't part of the following submission of requests that go out that do have signatory documents that are, or signatory processes that are attached to them. So this would have been part of the first request. It's different. So what I'm trying to say is that if we request for income and expense information, and if the property owner then requests an extension to provide the information, then they actually aren't on the second round of official mailings that go out that has the attached signatory requirements that go along with it. So this would be the information that we have in regards to the non-compliance.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Navarro, do you have a comment as to why your owner seems to have asked for an extension and not provided the information?
Mr. Chair, I wish I knew. So I did inquire with the owners, but there was no response other than give us some time. We'll see what we have, but there was no further update on that. So I can't speak to it. We tried contacting the owner, but we weren't really successful in finding out the answer as to why the extension was not adhered to.
All right, thank you very much. I think at that point, we will go in camera and decide what we would like to do with this one way or another. So,
Chair, I have,
sorry, do you have questions, Ms. Duncan?
yeah, is this a new owner?
I've never run against, sorry, excuse me, I've never had an opportunity to look at this property in the past, nor the ownership group. So I believe it's a new client in general.
New client, but Mr. Pontier, is there a new owner here?
Sorry.
I don't believe so. I don't believe that there is any sales information that we found on the property, at least recently. So I believe the last sale was 15 years ago or so.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, sorry about that. So do you mind if I just city that? Is this a new owner, or have the?
To my knowledge, this is not a new owner.
Okay, thank you. So and then I guess what I'm trying to ascertain is, have they provided them in the past? Not that that's the point in question, but I just need to know if there was a you know, a pattern, so to speak. Maybe they don't know what to do if they're brand new and never owned a business before. So
Yeah,
That-
possibly. I mean, if this is a new client, like I suspect, because I've never seen this property in the past before, we certainly don't have an established history for it. So we don't know if they were submitting. I think the assessor could probably give you a better answer to that, since they probably have a look, they can have a look at the previous records to see if they have been compliant over the years.
okay, no further questions.
If that does, Mr. Pontier, does that, look like there's been a new ownership group in this property, sir? Can you tell from what you're looking at, sir?
I didn't see any indication that there would have been a new owner. As Mr. Navarro alluded to, there was a sale, but it was back from 2007, so there's nothing on record that would indicate that there would have been some ownership change that took place.
Okay. All right, unless we have any further questions, then I think we will take a moment in camera and we will decide what we'll do. Thank you. Thank you very much. And welcome back, everyone. With respect to the non-cooperation on 83 Sherbrooke that was requested by the department, we are granting that request. So Mr. Navarro, if we could have your presentation on this, it would be appreciated. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, we're simply going to ask for confirmation on this.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And unless there is a comment to be made by either party, I think that concludes. I believe we've heard all the items scheduled, and this hearing now is adjourned. So thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, panel members. Thank you, Marcelo.
Yeah, thank you, everyone, and have a good day.
Thanks.
Thank you. Good day.
Bye.
Take care, everybody.